Welcome to the November episode of Forbeck on the Forefront. In each monthly installment, we tackle today's challenges in our fight against cancer. Today, we explore how cancer evolves and thus becomes a moving target for those treating it.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into something really fascinating, a big rethink happening in cancer research.
That's right. We're looking at how scientists are shifting their whole approach.
Exactly. We've got insights from a major scientific meeting, the Forum on Targeting Cancer Evolution.
Yeah, so our mission today is basically to unpack what the top minds are thinking, how they're planning to tackle cancer differently.
And this isn't just any conference, is it? It sounds quite high level.
Oh, absolutely. The sources describe it as a strategic planning session at the Castello del Paso in Italy, no less. And it's chaired by Ofer Shoshani from the Weizmann Institute and Sarah McClellan from Bart's Cancer Institute.
Wow.
And the core idea, the whole reason for this meeting is to stop thinking of cancer as just this static thing.
Right, and start seeing it for what it is.
Yeah, seeing it as this ongoing evolutionary process, a battle, really.
Yeah. That really frames the central problem, doesn't it? Cancer's so hard to treat, not just because it's complex, but because it keeps changing. It's a moving target.
That's it, exactly. Cancer has this incredible ability to morph, to adapt. It changes based on its environment within the body, and crucially, it learns to adapt to our best treatments.
So hitting it hard doesn't always work because it just evolves.
Precisely. If we treat the cancer we diagnose today, we often fail because it evolves into something resistant tomorrow. So understanding how it evolves, its trajectory, that's the new leverage point.
Okay, let's dig into that evolutionary viewpoint then. Because one of the first things that jumped out from the sources was how it challenges the old idea about when cancer develops.
The traditional view was always, slow burn, decades of accumulation, showing up later in life.
Yeah, that's what you generally think.
And that definitely happens. That slow progression model is real, but it's not the whole picture anymore. Not by a long shot.
So it's the new thinking.
We're seeing more and more evidence that actually cancer formation and its evolution can sometimes be really quite abrupt. It can happen over much shorter timescales than we previously thought.
Wow. Abrupt. And this ability to change, it's not uniform.
Not at all. It's a huge spectrum. You've got everything from really slow, gradual changes to incredibly rapid bursts of evolution.
And that applies to the scale of the changes too, right? Not just the speed.
Exactly. The scope runs from tiny, almost insignificant seeming changes like altering a single letter, a single base pair in the DNA.
Just one letter change can matter.
Oh, yes. All the way up to massive, catastrophic shifts across the entire genome, whole chromosomes being duplicated or lost.
And what's driving all this change? What makes cancer so evolvable?
It boils down to instability at the DNA level, errors in copying, failures in repair mechanisms. These fuel the changes, giving the cancer the ability to adapt what we call evolvability.
And it needs this evolvability primarily for survival, not just growth.
It's absolutely about survival, especially when it's under pressure. Evolution helps it grab more resources, sure, space, nutrients, but the really critical things it enables are metastasis.
Spreading to other parts of the body.
Right. And crucially, resistance to therapy. That's the big one. If cancer couldn't evolve, our drugs would be far, far more effective for much longer. Evolution is often why treatments ultimately fail.
Okay, so if evolution is the core problem, how do you even begin to fight that? It sounds like you'd need completely different strategies than just chemo or radiation. Are they trying to, trick evolution?
That's a great way to put it, actually. And yes, it requires a totally different therapeutic mindset. The so what of seeing cancer as evolutionary is moving away from just hitting it as hard as possible.
Because that just selects for the toughest cells.
Exactly. You wipe out all the easy-to-kill cells and you're left with the super-resistant ones you inadvertently selected for. You've basically sped up the evolution of resistance.
Right. You create this intense pressure cooker.
Precisely. So the new thinking is more about anticipating, trying to preempt the evolutionary escape routes the cancer might take.
How would you even do that?
Well, one approach is called adaptive therapy. Instead of continuous high doses, you might use lower doses or pulse the treatment drug holidays, they call them.
Drug holidays.
Yeah. The goal isn't necessarily to kill every cancer cell, but maybe to keep the drug-sensitive cells alive just enough so they compete with the emerging resistant cells. You're managing the ecosystem.
Wow.
You're trying to manipulate the evolutionary dynamics to keep the cancer controllable, maybe for longer, rather than going for that immediate, often unsustainable knockout blow.
That's a massive shift. It really turns treatment into this strategic game against adaptation itself.
It does.
So to get everyone thinking this way, the forum organizers set things up very systematically. They wanted a holistic view, right? Walking through the scales of change.
Yes, exactly. The structure of the meeting is designed to force people to connect the dots, starting small and scaling up, from the tiniest changes to the big picture.
Okay, so section 1. From letters to genes. Why start there? What are the letters?
The letters are those individual base pairs in the DNA sequence, the A, C, T, and Gs, the absolute smallest unit of change.
And a change in just one of those can kick things off.
Sometimes, yes. A single point mutation, changing one letter, can be enough to activate a gene that pushes the cell towards cancer. So this first session is about understanding how those initial, maybe even random, tiny advantages arise.
Got it. But cancer isn't just about one letter changing here or there. It gets much bigger and messier, right?
Yeah.
What's the next step up?
Right. From single letters, we scale up quite a bit. The next session looks at subchromosomal structures. Now we're talking about larger chunks of DNA getting copied, deleted, or moved around. This affects multiple genes at once.
Okay, bigger chunks.
And we go even bigger. Whole chromosome and genome scale changes. This is where you see massive instability, entire chromosomes being gained or lost, the whole genetic blueprint becoming really scrambled.
That sounds like chaos.
It often is. And this chaos can massively accelerate the pace of evolution, allowing for rapid adaptation.
And the final level, the biggest picture, cell populations and beyond.
Right, because all those changes we just talked about, letters, chunks, whole genomes, they happen inside individual cells. But cancer is ultimately a disease of cell populations.
Oh.
So this final level looks at how the whole community of diverse cancer cells, some sensitive to drugs, some resistant, some good at migrating, how they all interact, compete, sometimes even cooperate within the tumor ecosystem. That dynamic drives the overall evolution you see in the patient.
It makes sense to look at it scale by scale. But why has it been so hard traditionally to connect these different levels? You mentioned an elephant analogy.
Yeah, the classic blind men and the elephant story.
Yeah.
For a long time, you had scientists laser focused on just single gene mutations over here, and another group over there studying only these massive chromosome rearrangements. They were often in separate fields, using different tools, going to different meetings.
So they were touching different parts of the same beast without realizing it.
Pretty much. They might not see how the small changes feed into the big ones, or how the population dynamics influence which changes get selected. Cancer is this incredibly complex elephant.
So the forum aims to get everyone in the same room, feeling the whole elephant, so to speak.
Exactly. By forcing the mutation people to talk directly to the chromosome people and the population dynamics people, the hope is they'll finally piece together the whole picture.
And seeing that whole picture is crucial for finding weaknesses.
It's the only way, really. You need that holistic view to spot the vulnerabilities that might cut across all those scales, to find ways to target the process of evolution itself, not just its latest product.
Okay, talking about bringing people together.
Yeah.
The way they chose the participants for this forum sounds really interesting. It wasn't just about getting the most famous names, was it?
No, not at all. The chairs, Ofer and Sarah, were very deliberate. They specifically looked for people who, yes, might be experts on one scale, say mutations, but who were already trying to connect their work to the bigger picture, the grander kind of scheme of things, as the source material puts it.
People already thinking beyond their own little niche.
Right. They needed people who were inherently wired for that kind of cross-disciplinary thinking and collaboration. Open-mindedness was key.
And they also actively sought out younger researchers, up-and-coming scientists, and people from the outskirts of a field. Why do that?
That was about shaking things up, deliberately, bringing in fresh perspectives, avoiding the echo chamber you sometimes get by inviting the same established group over and over again.
Injecting new blood, basically.
Exactly. It widens the network, fosters new connections that might not otherwise happen, and hopefully sparks really novel, long-lasting collaborations, decades-long potentially.
That leads to this really ambitious goal mentioned in the sources, trying to find a unifying theory for cancer evolution. I mean, wow, is that even realistic?
It's definitely ambitious, maybe the most ambitious goal. And you're right to question it, given how incredibly diverse cancers are. Lung cancer evolves differently from pancreatic cancer, for instance.
So is a single theory possible?
Maybe theory is too strong a word. Perhaps it's more about distilling the core principles. Are there common evolutionary rules, common strategies that most cancers use, even if the specifics differ? Finding those commonalities would be huge.
Okay, that makes more sense. Finding the common playbook.
Yeah.
And what makes cancer so special in this evolutionary sense? Why isn't, say, cystic fibrosis, which is caused by a gene defect, considered an evolving disease in the same way?
That's a really crucial distinction. In most genetic diseases, like cystic fibrosis, you have an initial genetic change, a mutation, maybe a chromosomal abnormality, and largely that's it. The disease state is relatively fixed based on that initial change.
It doesn't keep changing dramatically after diagnosis?
Generally, no. But with cancer, the ability to keep changing, to generate new mutations, to rearrange its genome, to adapt to therapies that ongoing, relentless change is an inherent property of the tumor itself. It's baked into its biology.
So the evolution isn't just a consequence, it's fundamental to what cancer is.
Exactly. It's uniquely an evolutionary disease, which is why we need evolutionary solutions.
Okay, let's talk about how they actually foster this kind of thinking at the meeting. They use something called the Forbeck format. What's different about that?
Ah, the Forbeck format. It's specifically designed to, well, force people out of their usual comfort zones. It's not your typical big conference hall with hundreds of people and back-to-back PowerPoint presentations.
No, what is it then?
It's much smaller, more intense, a closed-door scientific retreat, really. The entire focus is on discussion, debate, synthesis, less about presenting polished data, more about grappling with ideas.
And I read it can be quite intimidating, even for very senior scientists. Something about causing almost panic.
Tickles lightly. Yes, it definitely can be.
Yeah.
Because it takes away their usual props. You know, normally a senior professor might give a talk using 80 slides, showing years of published work. It's comfortable, controlled.
Right.
In the Forbeck format, they might be asked to talk for 20, maybe 40 minutes, often without slides, focusing on their newest, maybe incomplete ideas, their biggest challenges, their most confusing data.
No slides, just talking.
Just talking, thinking out loud. And the audience full of other world experts is not just allowed, but actively encouraged to interrupt, question, challenge, throw out alternative ideas at any point.
Wow, that sounds intense. High pressure.
It creates incredible intellectual pressure, yes. But that's kind of the point.
So what's the payoff for putting people through that? Why endure the potential panic?
The payoff is getting to the real cutting edge, to the origins of discovery. When you have that intense back-and-forth dynamic, people are much more willing to talk about their unpublished stuff.
Ah, the stuff that isn't neat and tidy yet.
Exactly. The half-formed hypotheses, the crazy ideas, the puzzling results that might lead to breakthroughs 5 or 10 years down the line. You're essentially brainstorming the future of the field right there in the room.
Getting ahead of the curve, basically, before it's even written up.
Precisely. You get past the safe, already published findings and really dig into what's next.
So the immediate goals are pretty clear. Spark new thinking, generate ideas people can take right back to their labs, new experiments to run next week.
Absolutely. That immediate inspiration is a huge benefit.
But the bigger, longer-term hope is really about building those deeper connections, those collaborations that might redefine the field.
That's the ultimate prize, yes. The format is designed to build trust and relationships, not just exchange data. The hope is that people leave not just with ideas, but with new collaborators, new shared projects that could last for years, tackling problems they couldn't solve alone.
Okay, so we've really covered a lot of ground here looking at this strategic shift in oncology. If we boil it down, the key takeaway seems to be this move away from seeing cancer as static.
It's towards understanding it as this dynamic, evolving system, and crucially, needing to study it holistically, connecting the dots from the smallest DNA changes right up to the complex behavior of entire cell populations.
That sums it up perfectly. It's a profound shift, not just in strategy, but in the culture of the research itself.
And that leads us to our final thought for you, the listener.
Right. If this big, ambitious goal is finding some kind of unifying understanding of cancer evolution, and if achieving that requires this radical, cross-disciplinary, adaptive approach we've been talking about, then maybe consider this. What needs to change fundamentally in how we support science, how labs are funded, how scientists are rewarded? How do we incentivize people to step out of their comfortable research silos and really engage in this kind of challenging, collaborative, holistic work instead of just sticking to their own individual projects? What systemic changes are needed to fuel this new evolutionary fight against cancer?
Well, that's it for today. Thanks for listening to our third episode of Forbeck on the Forefront. We hope you found it illuminating. As we continue our journey to find a cure for cancer through research, we ask you to join us. Any donation is appreciated, and every donation goes directly to enhancing the efforts of the scholars and scientists who are involved in this critical research. We thank you for your support in advance. See you next time.